Listen, Eleanor.
No, seriously, are these decisions being made by Starmer? Are they being made by the uber clown of all of the clowns, David Lammy, in his trainers? Because I think, seriously, I mean, lots of what Labour have done in the first few months is laughable.
The Labour Party is losing power, and criticism of them is only increasing every day, because they make not only stupid decisions, but also destructive ones. The public is furious, because they are trying to shut us up and make their own decisions without consulting the people. I have selected for you the most interesting scenes with new news about the Labour Party. We're starting to watch.
Right, well, Keir Starmer has once again betrayed the British public. In the latest humiliation for our country, Starmer and Lammy have struck a new deal with the Mauritian government where we will pay to deport illegal immigrants arriving in Chagos to St Helena. That's a small British island just off of Africa, 5,000 miles away. The last time that island saw such unwanted guests was when we banished Napoleon there 174 years ago. But let's not forget, Starmer heralded his cancellation of the extremely similar Rwanda plan on his first day in office and has done nothing since.
The government has concluded an agreement on the Rwandan model for the deportation of illegal migrants. Asylum seekers arriving on the islands will be sent to St Helena. No new migrants have arrived since 2022. But according to the agreement, the UK will transfer all previously arrived migrants to them. The agreement will be valid for 18 months, or until the UK's treaty with Mauritius on the transfer of sovereignty over the Chagos Islands comes into force. From the moment the treaty enters into force, Mauritius will be responsible for all illegal migrants. To support the agreement with the island, the government has agreed to funding in the amount of £6.65 million.
Listen, Eleanor.
No, seriously, are these decisions being made by Starmer? Are they being made by the uber clown of all of the clowns, David Lammy, in his trainers? Because I think, seriously, I mean, lots of what Labour have done in the first few months is laughable, but it is reversible, like giving back, you know, stopping our pensioners from freezing, things like that. But this kind of stuff is serious and it is irreversible. Giving back the Chagos Islands with absolutely no consultation, no public discussion.
The problem with most of Labour's policies is that they are not only politically untenable, but actually quite stupid. The common sense that Labour had in opposition seems to have completely deserted the party. A striking example of this is the erroneous decision to take away winter fuel subsidies from pensioners and give this money to already well-paid train drivers. Another example is Rayner's idea that the beauty of buildings does not matter and that the right to buy a home should be abolished, as if this would magically solve the housing crisis. If the idea of imposing a value-added tax on school fees was crazy enough in itself, then now Labour intends to introduce this policy in January. Unfortunately, recklessness manifests itself not only in domestic politics. David Lammy's announcement to suspend the issuance of 30 arms export licenses to Israel, just at the moment when 6 hostages were being buried, means that Hamas can now add the Labour government to its list of useful idiots.
On this.
You don't think we should have had a discussion about that? You don't think it should have been in the manifesto?
No.
You think it was just we all just woke up and that's what David Lammy had decided to do?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I actually do.
Okay, come on, Andy, you have to admit. Andy, come on. Listen, hang on one second. You must admit this is the worst trade deal in British history. Come on. You can't see any... What's the benefit for us?
It's so irrelevant. That's,
the US,
would you say that about the Falkland Islands? Would you say that about
which is a completely different
territory?
No, because that is a completely different situation. It's completely different. Obviously, I would not say that.
They didn't even have the respect to talk to the Chagosians about it.
Exactly.
By the way, Jeremy Corbyn should form an alliance with 4 independent MPs, promising to fight austerity and advocate for issues such as winter fuel, the restriction of the allowance for 2 children and the sale of weapons to Israel. The group also openly invited MPs to cooperate, referring to the 7 Labour MPs who left the party for voting to abolish the restriction of the allowance for 2 children. They want to give hope to a parliament full of despair. Already this government has abolished winter fuel allowances for about 10 million pensioners, voted to maintain a cap on benefits for 2 children and ignored calls to stop selling weapons to Israel. 5 deputies have already started working as a parliamentary group before the summer holidays, including signing a number of joint letters to the government and making joint statements.
The United States the Secretary of who?
You.
Come on. The Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, said this is a win for diplomacy, right? So the US are happy,
I wouldn't trust Joe Biden's administration with anything, quite frankly, but yes, I see what you're saying.
Oh, good. The US are happy. That's all right.
Well, exactly, yeah. Are we a sort of
do you think we should,
of the US?
We're a declining nation.
The United States or not?
Well, I don't think we should be a little puppet for the
Thatcher still went to the Falklands after Reagan asked her not to. She had some balls, ironically.
Right. Yeah, well...
I think the relations between Washington and London are on the verge of collapse. Starmer, because of his Labour activists, and so clogged with all the scandals, will not be well if Trump wins. They are sure that it will be much easier for London to do business with Harris. Moreover, the Labour Party chose the most unfortunate moment to campaign for Harris. Polls, like early voting statistics, paint a very disturbing picture. There are already too many contradictions between the United States and Britain on all issues from strategy on Ukraine to relations with China. Well, if Trump wins, he will certainly take revenge on the Labour Party, and he will help his friend Farage, who is serious about changing the political system.
Lucy Connolly was jailed for 31 months on Thursday following a tweet that she posted in the aftermath of the tragic attacks in Southport in July. There was no clear evidence that this directly incited violence. It certainly wouldn't have met the test for incitement in the US, for example. This indicates to me that this was a punishment for a thought as opposed to a punishment for the consequences of that thought. Make no mistake, this crackdown on thought crime in the United Kingdom is far more dangerous to this country than any tweet possibly could be.
Lucy Connolly was convicted of inciting violence against asylum seekers after she posted provocative remarks on social media shortly after that horrific crime in Southport. She was sentenced to 31 months in prison. Raymond Connolly told Mail Online that she had never been in trouble with the law before. He intends to appeal to the court.
There has never been an example in human history of an idea being eliminated because a government stopped the expression of that idea. But moreover, and I think something which has gone unsaid recently, this is reflective of a country that has lost complete confidence in itself. We used to trust individuals and communities with words because we had a strong sense of values that we knew would endure whether or not someone said good things or bad things.
We really don't have freedom of speech. Powers introduced by the Conservatives to protect free speech at universities have been abolished by Labour. Although they say that the government remains fully committed to freedom of speech and academic freedom, that's a lie. Freedom of speech is a fundamental right, and it should apply to everyone and everything. Without the opportunity to express one's opinion freely, our country runs the risk of becoming a propaganda centre. The fact that this Labour government is ready to abandon the measures clearly shows that they are ready to sacrifice the next generation on the altar of their own ideological dogma.
And you had, over recent weeks, a teenager cleared of all charges after stabbing a man on board a London train because he claimed it was in self-defence, and he got away with it. Has been no arrest no charge when it comes to the Manchester airport, in which a woman was hit so hard that she had lacerations across her face, a police officer. And there were protesters going through London carrying "I love Hezbollah," a proscribed terrorist organisation, placards. Nothing has happened to them as of yet. But we said that we need to be completely vindictive in our approach when it comes to anyone that said anything during those weeks after the Southport massacre.
A teenager has been charged with attempting to kill a man on a train in broad daylight in front of terrified passengers. The lawyer for the family at the centre of the Manchester airport scandal has said he is resigning as the investigation into the incident gathers momentum. Ahmed Yaqub found himself at the centre of criticism after he claimed that the 19-year-old was the victim of an assassination attempt, as a result of which he was fighting for his life. The footage shows Fahir striking police officers before he was immobilised with a taser.
There are clearly... Look, our justice system is broken, partly because of a complete lack of funding. We're in a situation where there are trials that won't be held until 2027 for crimes that have been committed recently. That's mad. It's partly because we've been starved of funding in our judicial system. I come back to the point, I do think it's a disproportionate sentence, but I have no sympathy for her whatsoever terrible, terrible thing to say.
Well,
awful person, sorry.
I think that's a red herring. The issue is the first point that you raised, and that is that this just doesn't work. The statute that she was charged under is from 1986. Do we really think that racial harmony has got dramatically better in this time as a result of having legal guardrails in place?
Was it the Public Order Act?
This is absurd. Our judicial system is completely rotten. A 57-year-old man has recently been released from prison, where he served 17 years on charges of a crime committed by another person. The former prisoner was found to have been wrongfully convicted, but now he is required to compensate for the costs spent on his detention behind bars. And he was able to win the trial and is demanding up to £1 million in compensation from the British authorities. What do you think about this video? Write your opinion in the comment. See you.